In the annals of criminal history, there are names that send shivers down our spines, invoking a chilling fascination with the dark corners of the human psyche. One such name is Dennis Nilsen, a seemingly ordinary man who inhabited the bustling streets of London. Nilsen's unassuming demeanor masked a twisted and sinister compulsion that would ultimately lead him down a path of unimaginable horror. Known as the Muswell Hill murderer, or the kindly killer, Dennis Nilsen's crimes left a lasting scar on the collective consciousness, forcing us to confront the depths of human depravity and the fragility of our own sense of safety. In this exploration, we delve into the life, motives, and unfathomable actions of a man whose name has become synonymous with darkness. This is the chilling tale of Dennis Nilsen, a journey into the mind of a serial killer. Dennis Nilsen primarily targeted vulnerable young men, often those who were homeless or socially marginalized. His victims were typically individuals who found themselves on the fringes of society, struggling to find stability, support, and acceptance. Nilsen preyed on their desperation and the relative invisibility with which society often regarded them. His victims ranged in age, but were generally in their late teens to early 30s. Many of them were estranged from their families, lacking strong support networks or a stable living situation. Nilsen exploited their circumstances, knowing they were less likely to be missed or actively sought out if they disappeared. Nilsen's choice of victims was strategic. He believed that society would be less likely to care about the deaths of these young men due to their perceived low social status. This allowed him to operate for a considerable period without arousing significant suspicion or attracting the attention of law enforcement. By targeting individuals who were already marginalized and facing adversity, Nilsen not only sought to exert control and dominance over them, but also believed that he could evade detection more easily. His selection of victims reflected a disturbing willingness to prey upon those society often overlooked or dismissed, further exacerbating the tragedy of his crimes. Dennis Nilsen's method of targeting vulnerable young men, often homeless or socially marginalized, was insidious in its calculated approach. With a keen understanding of their circumstances and vulnerabilities, Nilsen exploited their desperate need for basic necessities, such as food, shelter, and companionship. Nilsen would prowl the streets, seeking out individuals who appeared isolated or in dire straits. Using his charm and charisma, he would strike up conversations with these potential victims, offering them a respite from their hardships. He would extend invitations to his residents, enticing them with promises of a warm meal, a drink, or a place to sleep. Once lured into his lair, Nilsen would gradually gain their trust, often playing the role of a caring mentor or protector. He would capitalize on their vulnerability, creating an illusion of safety and belonging. This manipulation allowed him to establish a sense of control over his victims, exploiting their desperation for human connection. However, this apparent benevolence concealed Nilsen's dark intentions. When his victims were at their most vulnerable, their guards lowered, he would strike. Nilsen employed various methods to incapacitate and kill his victims, including strangulation and drowning. Frequently, he would render them unconscious using a ligature or his hands, cutting off their oxygen supply until their lives ebbed away. After the act of murder, Nilsen would descend into even more macabre territory. He engaged in acts of necrophilia with the lifeless bodies of his victims, further dehumanizing them in his pursuit of gratification. Following these grotesque acts, he would proceed to dismember the corpses, meticulously severing limbs and removing organs. Nilsen's disposal methods were as disturbing as his crimes themselves. He resorted to disposing of the remains through various means, including flushing body parts down the toilet or burning them in his garden. He believed that by destroying the evidence, he could maintain his facade of normalcy and continue his horrifying spree undetected. It is the calculated and manipulative nature of Dennis Nilsen's method of targeting vulnerable young men that makes his crimes all the more chilling. Exploiting their desperation and loneliness, he subjected them to unimaginable horror, forever altering the lives of his victims and leaving a legacy of terror in his wake. After luring his victims to his residence, Dennis Nilsen engaged in a series of disturbing actions. Once inside, he would often provide them with food, alcohol, or a place to sleep, maintaining the illusion of hospitality and care. However, this benevolence quickly turned sinister. Nilsen would gradually establish a sense of trust and control over his victims, exploiting their vulnerability and their need for connection. He would often play the role of a mentor or protector, exploiting their desperation for support and guidance. This psychological manipulation allowed him to further solidify his control over them. When the time was right, and his victims were at their most vulnerable, Nilsen would carry out his heinous acts. He employed various methods to incapacitate and kill them, such as strangulation or drowning. Using ligatures or his bare hands, he would cut off their oxygen supply, leading to their demise. Following the murder, Nilsen's actions became even more disturbing. He would engage in acts of necrophilia, sexually violating the lifeless bodies of his victims. This further dehumanized them, transforming them into objects of his perverse gratification. After satisfying his twisted desires, Nilsen would then proceed to dismember the corpses. With meticulous precision, he would sever limbs, remove organs, and break down the bodies into smaller, more manageable pieces. This gruesome process allowed him to dispose of the remains without attracting attention. To dispose of the evidence, Nilsen resorted to various methods. He would often attempt to flush body parts down the toilet, but when that proved ineffective, he resorted to alternative means. This included burning the remains in his garden, burying them, or even discarding them in other locations to further obscure the truth. The actions Nilsen took after luring his victims reveal a disturbing blend of control, degradation, and the meticulous disposal of evidence. They highlight the depths of his depravity and the lengths to which he went to conceal his crimes, perpetuating the torment and anguish of his victims and their families. The families of Dennis Nilsen's victims experienced a wide range of emotions upon learning about the fate that befell their loved ones. The impact on each family varied, but it is safe to say that the news of their family members falling victim to such horrific crimes was devastating and traumatic. For many families, the revelation of their loved ones' involvement with Nilsen and the details of their tragic demise brought forth an overwhelming sense of grief, shock, and disbelief. They had to grapple with the horrifying reality that their family member had become a victim of a serial killer, enduring unimaginable suffering at the hands of Nilsen. The families also faced the harrowing task of coming to terms with the heinous acts committed against their loved ones. They had to confront the gruesome details of the murders, the dismemberment of the bodies, and the desecration of their remains. These revelations likely compounded their grief, adding a layer of profound anguish and trauma to their mourning process. Moreover, the families may have felt a sense of guilt or responsibility, questioning whether they could have done more to protect their loved ones or prevent their tragic fate. These feelings of guilt and self-doubt can be profoundly distressing and may take time to process and reconcile. Additionally, the families had to navigate the public exposure and media attention surrounding the case, which could compound their distress and grief. They were forced to relive their pain repeatedly as the details of the crimes were discussed and sensationalized in the media. While it is difficult to generalize the experiences of all the families, it is evident that the impact of Nilsen's actions was profound and long-lasting. They had to endure the loss of their loved ones in the most horrific circumstances imaginable, forever haunted by the knowledge of how their lives were tragically cut short. Dennis Nilsen's reign of terror eventually came to an end when his crimes were discovered, leading to his arrest and subsequent capture. The sequence of events that led to Nilsen's capture began with a drain blockage at his residence in Muswell Hill, North London in 1983. The plumber called to fix the issue made a startling discovery. Human remains were found in the drains. This prompted the plumber to contact the police, who initiated an investigation. As the police delved deeper into the case, they quickly connected the human remains to Nilsen's address. They began to unravel the horrifying truth behind the blockages and the gruesome crimes that had been committed within the walls of his home. Upon further examination of the property, the police discovered additional evidence, including remains buried in the garden and other macabre elements that implicated Nilsen in a series of murders. Nilsen's meticulous disposal methods had not gone unnoticed, but the accumulated evidence now pointed directly at him. Nilsen was subsequently arrested and taken into custody. During police interviews and interrogations, he confessed to his heinous crimes, providing chilling details about the murders he had committed and the motives behind them. The extent of Nilsen's crimes shocked both investigators and the public. As news of his arrest and the horrific nature of his acts spread, it sent shockwaves through the community and the nation as a whole. Nilsen's trial took place in 1983, where he faced charges of murder and attempted murder. He initially pleaded not guilty to murder, but later changed his plea to guilty for 6 counts of murder and 2 attempted murders. The evidence presented during the trial, including Nilsen's own admissions and the physical remains found at his residence, left little doubt about his guilt. He was subsequently convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. The discovery of the human remains in the drains and the subsequent investigation played a pivotal role in Dennis Nilsen's capture. The diligent work of the plumber, the police, and the ensuing legal proceedings brought an end to Nilsen's horrific crimes and ensured that justice was served for his victims. In the aftermath of Dennis Nilsen's crimes, his case prompted several legal changes and reforms to enhance the response to similar cases and improve the protection of vulnerable individuals. While the specific legal changes may vary depending on the jurisdiction, some general reforms include missing persons procedures. Nilsen's case highlighted the need for more effective and coordinated responses to reports of missing persons. Law enforcement agencies reviewed and revised their procedures to ensure timely and comprehensive investigations into missing individuals, particularly those who are considered at higher risk, such as homeless or marginalized individuals. Interagency cooperation. Nilsen's case exposed gaps in communication and collaboration between different law enforcement agencies. As a result, measures were implemented to facilitate better cooperation and information sharing among police departments, forensic experts, and other relevant authorities to improve the speed and effectiveness of investigations. Victim support services. The case underscored the importance of providing comprehensive support to the families of victims and survivors. Governments and non-profit organizations allocated resources to enhance victim support services, including counseling, financial assistance, and legal guidance, to help individuals and families cope with the aftermath of such heinous crimes. Forensic procedures. Nilsen's crimes influenced advancements in forensic techniques and evidence handling. Authorities refined their forensic procedures to better collect, preserve, and analyze evidence related to missing persons, crime scenes, and human remains, with a focus on enhancing the accuracy and reliability of forensic evidence in similar cases. Public awareness and education. The case raised public awareness about the vulnerabilities faced by marginalized individuals and the importance of community vigilance and support. Educational campaigns were launched to inform the public about recognizing signs of potential harm, reporting suspicious activities, and providing resources for homeless and at-risk populations. Review of parole and sentencing guidelines. Nilsen's case prompted a review of parole and sentencing guidelines for serious crimes, particularly those involving serial killers. Authorities re-evaluated the criteria for release and imposed stricter measures to ensure public safety and prevent the premature release of individuals convicted of heinous crimes. The story of Dennis Nilsen is a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. His methodical targeting of vulnerable young men, his manipulation, and his heinous acts of violence and necrophilia horrified society and shattered the lives of his victims and their families. Nilsen's crimes exposed the vulnerability of marginalized individuals, prompting discussions about the need for better social support systems and increased vigilance to protect those at risk. His case led to legal reforms, improvements in missing persons procedures, and advancements in forensic techniques, all aimed at enhancing the response to similar cases and ensuring justice for the victims. The impact of Nilsen's actions reached far beyond the immediate victims. The trauma experienced by the families, the fear instilled in communities, and the influence on criminology and forensic psychology cannot be understated. His case continues to captivate public fascination, serving as a cautionary tale and a testament to the importance of vigilance and empathy in safeguarding society. As we reflect on the atrocities committed by Dennis Nilsen, we are reminded of the importance of recognizing the humanity in every individual, irrespective of their circumstances. It is a call to create a society that values and protects the most vulnerable among us, ensuring that no one falls victim to the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of others. May the memory of Nilsen's victims endure, serving as a reminder to remain vigilant, compassionate, and dedicated to preventing such horrors from ever happening again. Only through understanding, empathy, and a commitment to justice can we strive to prevent the repetition of such acts and build a safer and more compassionate world for all.